Now we're going to look at some formulas called supply and demand. Now the way that it works is with supply and with demand, you have a certain amount of give and take in any market. So the amount that is supplied is oftentimes in tandem with the amount that is demanded. You don't want to skew it one way or the other. So, for example, if you demand for a product and as the price becomes higher, the quantity demanded becomes less because fewer people can actually afford it. However, if you get a supplied, so if you overflow the market, then more people are able to buy it. So we use linear models to represent both the supply and the demand. Now, if you notice, these equations look very, very similar. If you look at the quantity demanded, this is the same form as y equals a x plus b. The only difference is that you get slope of the demand function, that is our pink. P is your unit price, so that is your independent variable. The quantity demanded is your dependent variable. Now, normally dependent variable we use black for. However, in this case, we're going to use purple to show the difference between the quantity of supply and the quantity of demand. Okay. And then the last thing is the intercept of the demand function. So these are just two functions that we're looking at. The next thing is the supply function. And for this, you are looking at y equals, and the exact same formula, a x plus b, where b to the s is the intercept, p is our independent variable, a to the s is the slope of the supply function, and here is our quantity supplied. This is our independent variable. So let's go ahead and actually try out some of these. We want to know where they intersect, because where they intersect is the equilibrium price. That's where you're going to be able to supply and give demand in equal measures. So graphically, the equilibrium price can be found at the intersection point. So we are looking for the point where the two graphs intersection. Now, the slope for the demand function is always negative, and the slope for the supply function is always positive. So when you have a chart that you're looking at like this, the demand function will go down. The supply function will go up, and this point where they intersect is called the equilibrium price. So let's actually try a problem on this and see how you do. An economist uses the following model for the demand of a product. Okay, so the quantity demanded, so we're looking at the demand, equals -2, that's our slope, p, our independent variable, plus 300, that's the intercept. The model for the supply is the supply equals 4, which is the positive slope, remember, because the quantity supply is always positive, the number of products, and then our intercept, -120. So rather than drawing an accurate graph from p equals 30 to p equals 150, we are actually going to try to find the equilibrium price. Now, to find the equilibrium price, we're going to look at where these two are equal. So I'm going to set up this equation, the demand equation, equal to the supply equation. So let's go ahead and write this out on top. -2 p plus 300 equals, and that's the demand. Now let's look at the supply. 4p, because we want the number of products to be the same in both equations, minus 120. So now in order to solve this, we need to do a few movements. The first thing I want to do is go ahead and move the -2 over, because when we move it over, it will become positive. And then I'm going to move the -120 over, because when it comes over, it becomes positive as well. So what you have is you have 300 plus, because when it gets moved over, it becomes positive, 120. And we get that this should be 420. Okay, so 420 equals. Now we have positive 4, and when the negative 2 moves over, it becomes a positive 2, equals 6 times the number of products. Okay, so now to solve this, we need to divide both sides by 6. So 420 divided by 6 gives me that we need to find 70 products. Okay, so 70 is the price of the item that we need to pay, because when we set the item for 70, then we will sell the most for it. So let's go ahead and look at what this graph looks like when it's drawn out. Here we have both, and if we come here, this point where it's in equilibrium is 70. So the price is 70. We have a demand of 160 units. We supply 160 units, and therefore we do not have a shortage or an excess in our formula.